Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this panel. You've been hearing all day about how important it is to grow the mining industry, and today this fantastic panel is going to tell us how we're going to do that, where and when. Now, to say that we have a commodity trader, a bunch of miners, a steelmaker, and a minister in the same room sounds like the start of a joke, but it's not. It's the start of our panel, and we're going to hear from each of them their view of the world, starting with you, Your Excellency Minister. You must be so pleased to see Saudi Arabia so firmly on the map in the global mining industry. How does the world look from your point of view when it comes to where mining is going to grow?
Thank you very much, and really I'm very proud of where we are today. In less than 3 years, to see this forum become what it is today is really very rewarding. So I would like to thank everyone here who have helped us to come where we are. When I started in this job, I never expected actually that we would do much in mining in 3 or 4 years. To see where we are today is just showing how much potential there is if there is the true will of the government, of the legal, I would say, ecosystem to do something that makes the country interesting in terms of attracting investment, attracting investors, but not only that, is actually participate in global challenges such as the transition, the supply chain disruption, and so on. So we are very privileged. I believe we were able to probably capitalize on the fact that we didn't have the legacy. We started on a more or less on a blank sheet of paper, designing what could be the future of mining in a country where it aspires to utilize its natural resources, but at the same time add value, diversify its economy. And I'm happy to see where we are today. Definitely, the thing that we should be focusing on from now on is the amount of investments that needs to be coming to the sector.
Mishari, you're very proudly from the region too, but a different part of the industry. You operate in the processing side. Tell us how it looks from your point of view.
That's correct. Perhaps I should start with a few words about Foulad. Foulad is an owner of a major pelletizing plant in Bahrain, the largest, one of the largest in the world in single site, and definitely the largest merchant plant, pelletizing merchant plant. It's also a majority owner of Sulb, which is a steel maker based in Bahrain and in Jubail in Saudi. Our view of mining is specifically a view of iron ore mining. And of course, we realize that many developments happening in the emerging markets, but in particular, we were very excited and very interested with the developments happening in iron ore mining in Saudi, which relates to us in great deal. In terms of grades and type of iron ore, we're producers of DR pellets, primarily DR1 pellets. So our interest is in high-grade iron ore. What we would like to see is an increase in investing by miners to produce high-grade iron ore, specifically because of the shift of steel makers from blast furnace to electrical arc furnaces from sustainability perspective, which require more of high-grade pellets that are fed by high-grade iron ore.
Mark, you must be a happy man, given where the gold price is, and this is before the Fed has started to hike interest rates, but you're also somebody in our industry who has a proud legacy of building new mines. So where do you think the new mines are going to come from?
So, Ro, first of all, it's again a pleasure to be here and listen to the conversation. I think we all set ourselves this objective of having an open conversation. I think honesty is an important part of that. And as you know, we have started the process of banking the great Reko Diq project in Pakistan. And I think on the back of that vision 2 years ago of telling the truth to the people on this planet, that we can't switch a switch and turn it green. But more importantly, we need to bring the rest of the world with us, because we might want to make batteries for California because they're big polluters, but we need to industrialize this world. And we all talk about risk and how risky it is to develop mines. And I think for us, we've got to say it's about responsible mining, as you and I talk about often. And to be responsible, you've got to be accountable. To be accountable, you've got to be transparent. And you can't do it on your own. And so the example that's been set in this forum is that governments have taken an interest in their own endowment. And so that's the first step in a public-private partnership, partnering between the skills, the workforce that are a most important natural endowment any country has, and then unlocking the God-given endowment that we have in our countries for the benefit of everyone on this planet. And so for me, I'm excited about Pakistan. It's going to be a fantastic example of how, if you work together for a common vision, you can deliver something that will transform a nation. And I think that is the example that we continue to have to hold up high in this forum. And as I said last year, we've got to be careful about landing up following everybody else in the world, because that's not a good place to be. And I would like to encourage everyone in this conversation that it's our responsibility to be honest and allow society
Mining was the most critical industry on the face of the planet. Second point, our industry has a net positive environment footprint, producing fertilisers and other products to shrink our human footprint in terms of the crops we grow, shrinking our urban footprints because we can build up using the materials from mining, means that we don't spread across the land and kill diversity. And third, in terms of the contribution we make in terms of water, the products that we produce, purify the water, desalination plants, all those materials come from mining. And our role in the energy transition has made it very clear and obvious to the world that we're the key to making sure that we've got the right energy structures and processes to support the planet and at the same time protect biodiverse environments. We don't tell our story. So when I talk about the importance of mining, growing mining, the first thing we have to do is tell our story. And in my view, without mining, social, environment, those possibilities are just not possible. We're the key. That's the most important point. The 3 points in terms of how do you grow, the how, or the where, as Mark often says, and I heard Mark say this a few months back, it's not about geopolitics, it's about geology. And I think his example in Pakistan is a great one. You have to go where the materials are. So making sure that the country has the endowment, and we've seen that great announcement yesterday from Geological Survey, absolutely critical. Secondly, in terms of the what, the key areas for us, we think, in terms of encourage investment is access to land, political certainty, having the skills, even if you have to bring some skills in terms of domain knowledge, experience, building the skills within the country over time. It's policy frameworks, it's consistency, and it's understanding how all those pieces work together. And then finally, the how. There's a responsibility on us as miners to do our work well. We can always improve. Unfortunately, from our point of view, it's the 2% bad stories that are used to characterise who we are. It's not about the 98%, and the fact that we make the world work is the story that doesn't get out there. So we've all got to do a better job in pulling those pieces together. And for me, that's the key message about or around how we can support countries develop investment in the material sector. Mining conjures up a hole in the ground when it's about us providing the materials that make the world work. That's who we are. We provide the materials that make the world work.
Excellent. Benedict and I sat next to each other at the ministerial yesterday, which, once again, Minister, was a great success. Well done to you. And we heard the term super region mentioned a number of times, and I know it's a very deliberate part that you've been trying to push. Benedict, your company has a rich history in the super region. What does the world look like from your seat?
Well, I still remember being here 3 years ago when this whole journey started in the kingdom. And when I went back and reported home that I'm going to invest in Saudi Arabia, people thought, that's kind of crazy. Saudi Arabia, there's oil, it's this and that. So I think the tectonic shift that has taken place in the perception of Saudi Arabia as a center of the super region is quite astounding. And we're very proud to be a little part of this. I mean, we do exploration here, and we also bring some of the most advanced technologies to this region for trying it out, because mining is about technology. Because some of the big challenges, and Mark was referring to the how part, some of the big challenges we have in looking at a super region and trying to discover new areas, the challenge is that investors don't really like the mining industry. Investors certainly don't like new regions when they're happy with operating in Canada and Australia. And also the industry is not actually putting its money where the mouth is. Something like 80% of the world's exploration spend, if it's not in gold, right, which is not future minerals in a way, is actually spent in 5 countries, the US, Canada, Australia, Brazil, and I forgot the 5th one. But the challenge is that long term, we're going to see that this investment will not materialize in these new jurisdictions, because only very few people have the courage and have the investor base that supports this term of a long-term investment thinking that is required for this industry to be successful in new jurisdictions. And this is where I think the kingdom can play such an enormously constructive role in shaping this agenda. And this is where Manara, I think, and the PIF has really made a nice mark last year, is this industry is ideal for long-term capital, right? And of course, Saudi Arabia, with its long history of thinking of long-term capital-intensive investments in the oil and gas industry, is ideally positioned to invest long-term outside of the kingdom in an industry that is prone to long-term investment cycles and the requirements for that. And it's also a necessity. I mean, I also chair the Global Battery Line, which is a by now 150-member organization to build a sustainable battery material supply chain. Most people probably wouldn't know this, but last year alone, electric vehicles replaced 1.7 million barrels of oil equivalent. That's 1.7. That's about the production of Norway. And this year, we're going to get into something like 1 out of 5 new vehicles will be electric, right? When we started the Global Battery Lines in 2016, today there are more electric vehicles sold per day than in the entirety of 2016. I mean, the shift that has taken place in such a short period of time. So if you fast forward the demand and the replacement ratio for oil, something by 2030, 2032, we're going to see electric vehicles replace something like the entire oil production of the United States of America, which is around 14, 15 million barrels, if I get it right. So it is a tectonic shift also for the kingdom. And the response to that is, well, let's diversify. So I think the logic is genius now to say this is the third pillar of the 2030 agenda. Expand it into the region because you can deploy long-term capital into jurisdictions that, by having this kind of a blended finance approach, are much more investable than they would be otherwise, because the mining industry is an unpopular industry, right? It trades at 8 times earnings forward compared to something like 19 average for the industry. Investors don't like the mining industry. Some of it is about the narrative we talk. Some of it is just risk aversity and the fact that the companies are still very small. The mining companies altogether, the big ones, are less than half of Apple market cap. And most companies have the issues that 2 or 3 assets, mines, in their portfolio are half of their enterprise value. Something goes wrong with that one single mine, your share price goes down. And we're not a listed company. We have might be a slightly different approach, but when you start to diversify into new regions, you also start to diversify your portfolio in terms of commodities and projects. And investors should reward that, and particularly long-term investors like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Jeremy, you've got a great perspective, being a little bit removed from the industry itself, although, of course, you trade all our products. How do you see the industry?
I think one of the issues we focused a lot on mining. There's been a huge disruption to supply chains around the world, be it through conflict, through war, or through geopolitical issues which have been addressed. And we're focusing a lot on mining. One of the issues is processing as well, because at the end of the day, we use metal. You know, we don't use concentrates. The concentrate is part of the fee for the smelter. And I think one of the areas there's been, obviously over the last, if you like, 3 decades, 2.5 decades, 80% of the world's smelters have been built in the Far East, okay? And in today's environment, is that acceptable given people's reliance on having multiple sources of supply? So therefore, these are issues we have to address. I suppose from where we sit as supply chain managers across the whole commodity spectrum, is it's become very complex. It's no longer, you know, what's your price and when am I going to get it? It's what's your price, what's the emissions footprint, who's producing it, how are they producing it? So it's a far more complex activity. And you know, we haven't got the shipping routes that we used to have, or if you do, you might have some problems. So again, to try and deliver the energy transition and the huge demand requirements, you know, our statistics are saying in the region, for example, in copper, a 4 million tonne deficit by 2030. These are very significant deficits. We have to move, we have to change. Mining is a very big part of it. We have to develop these resources. We also have to develop the processing and make sure that we get it to market. The only other thing I'd also like to comment on is that technological change is also making it quite uncertain. If you look at what the battery market's done, you know, if you had a cobalt mine, you know, 5 years ago, you were sort of saying, well, we're in a great position. If you see what's happened with the lithium-ion battery market from NCM to LFP markets in China, it's been a massive swing in a very, very short period of time. So therefore, as it was said before, you're making very, very long-term investments, yet with technological changes, there's absolute challenges which are coming to the fore. So these are some of the dynamics which the industry has to deal with.
That's a brilliant overview. Now I'm going to get specific with each of you. Ms. Shirey, can I ask you, what is your next big investment?
Our next big investment is actually, this is a timely question. Our next big investment is a pelletizing plant in Saudi. This is a timely question because we're progressing well. We've been allocated gas, which is a great major milestone for the project. And you know, it comes natural and obvious expansion for us in many ways. Saudi is the largest economy in the Middle East. Saudi has Vision 2030, which is shaping up, and the country is delivering in many ways. Economic growth, all these obvious components, but the most important component is actually, which we're experiencing firsthand, is the conducive environment, the conducive investment environment in Saudi. We went through the process, we applied, the constructive and cooperative interaction with various government entities is very remarkable. We've always known Saudi through our existing business, and we've always commended on the way we've been treated, and but the recent measures are very remarkable, make Saudi one of the top investment destinations, and this is coming from first-hand experience from an existing process we're going through. I'm very, very pleased to say our project is progressing well, and it will be at a cornerstone of steel industry in Saudi. It's pelletizing 7.5 million tons a year. It will be instrumental to the development of various projects in Saudi.
That must be music to your ears, Minister, to hear that the next major investment is in Saudi. Are you feeling similar optimism and interest from other players in Saudi too?
Definitely. I mean, today the pipeline, which we measure by the health of the investment, is really quite interesting. And on two fronts. One is the size of the investment, but the other also is the diversity. We are seeing so many projects that are coming, looking at Saudi Arabia as we have planned, is looking at it as a hub, as a place where you can enjoy local demand, you can enjoy access to different markets that are also very close, but most importantly, it is a place where you can actually be very competitive globally, which is really, for us, the most important element to ensure our long-term competitiveness, long-term ability to continue to grow the sector. So today, after launching our mining strategy, our industrial strategy, the focus now is really bringing in investors. We are working together with all types of investors to ensure that we have the right enablers. In fact, today, in my opening speech, I talked about some of the initiatives that we worked on. One of these initiatives actually is the result of listening to investors, which is the sizable amount of areas for concession in mining. That was not there. We listened to the companies. We listened to their interest in having sizable plots of land where they can be sure they can be there for a long time, and now that is available. And this is really the activity that we are doing. I mean, meetings like this, gatherings like this, and FII also, and others, is a great way to listen and to come back with solutions. And we are even doing similar things on a case-by-case project. But I normally like to study something and scale it up for a larger community. So I'm very happy with the health of the, I would say, the pipeline of business. I'm very happy with our execution of our industrial also strategy, especially when it comes to infrastructure, because this is key to ensuring that we continue to be competitive. So infrastructure is very important. If we want to bet on Saudi to be a global player in supply chain disruption, the only way to do it is having very strong capabilities through the infrastructure, logistics, and so on. So yes, but we need more. There's never enough.
You need more. Excellent. Well, Mark, Benedict says that the industry doesn't like risk, or the investors don't reward risk. But from Argentina to Papua to Pakistan, somehow you managed to do it. How do you do it?
So it's all about asset quality rather than jurisdiction. And I think as we learned, and we will continue to learn, is the importance of social license and the license to operate, which you have to invest in. And I think focusing on Saudi for this moment, Jabal Sayid, our copper mine in Saudi, is the most Saudi mine in the country. And we've invested in that, uplifting the skill base of our Saudi management from the general manager all the way down it's Saudi, and we have one problem in Saudi, and that is we would like to spend some more money, and to do that we need more access to more ground, because that's what the exploration game is. And I would point, we've just completed a framework agreement on investments in Egypt for exploration based on the Saudi mining code, and hopefully we're going to work with the Minister of Petroleum to make that into legislation to attract further investment in this part of the region. So not only is it important about immediate returns, but this industry, to Mark's point, is we've really got to invest. And being aligned with this forum, we have a government that understands the long-term nature of mining. And in the West, we spend our life fighting that requirement for instant gratification from an industry that invests decades ahead. And so we can teach a lot of people from this forum.
Yeah. Benedict, the one region in the world besides Saudi, of course, that you are most excited / optimistic about?
There's too many.
Give us your best one.
I think there's real opportunity in the Arctic.
Okay.
As we see climate warming, we'll see ice caps retreating, and we'll see ground opening that hasn't been seen ever by humankind. It's a bit of an irony that to find metals to prevent global warming, we have to go to places that have been more affected by global warming than anything else. But that's certainly an area that is very exciting. But for me, it's about the geology itself and about accessing that geology with tech, right? And we're still not applying the available technology, whether it's within the industry or in other industries, to our own industries. And I think there's huge optimization and efficiency gain potential by just taking what exists outside, adjusting it for the mining industry, applying in exploration and processing and transporting and tracking of materials in supply chain provenance and so on. So I think there's a huge potential to do that, and that will lift efficiencies across the board, regardless of the region.
Jeremy, can I ask you a question that will be on many people's minds at the moment? We hear of this long-term supply deficit for minerals, but short-term pricing for nickel, for lithium, all seems to go the other way. From a commodity trader's point of view, how do you see the market shaping up for these critical minerals, short-term, medium-term?
On a short-term basis, its prices are often due to the vagrancy of capital flows. You know, you ask most people, what do you think about the Chinese economy? And they'll be saying, well, the property market's on its knees and therefore, you know, commodity prices should be sold. Or you can look at the forward curve on some of these metals and it provides a very nice yield. So there's different drivers in the very short term for these metals. But longer term, we need these metals. Longer term, you know, it takes, according to our calculations, you know, the resources to be developed are 30% smaller than they used to be. It takes 40%, the cost base is 40% more than a decade ago. And this takes probably 50% longer than a decade ago. So therefore, my biggest concern on a long-term basis is that what happens in the 3 to 5 year period? If we are able to do this energy transition, if prices are where they are now because of the vagrancies of capital flows, you haven't got the incentive prices for the general community to invest. I think if we see government sovereign wealth funds that have a long-term view and they realise that the potential dynamics, so long capital can be attracted to the industry. But my biggest fear is that if we don't see the market move now, we have a real issue. And do we price ourselves out of the energy transition in the 5 year time frame?
That's a very interesting perspective. Mark, last word to you. The minister said he actually thinks the region was fortunate that they started from scratch. You've heard the vision for the region. Is it achievable to do what the region wants to do?
I think the vision is achievable, but I'll put one caveat based on what I heard yesterday. Every country that spoke about their vision for the future said they wanted everything. They want exploration, they want mining, they want downstream processing, they want to participate in the supply chains. And in my experience in mining, 4 phases. Exploration and mine development requires significant investment, and the communities will participate 70 to 80% of the value to be had in those first two steps. Most countries aren't in a position to invest further downstream, which is much more expensive, lower returns, much higher risk, and quite often they're starving the country of investment in other sectors that should come before downstream processing. In the Saudi Arabia context, they've been in the extractive sector for a long time. They've built a balance sheet. They've got the capacity to go downstream. But many of the other participants that probably should be working as partners on the downstream part are thinking about their own visions. And at the end of the day, Jim Rutherford said it quite well when he said, investments follow returns, not the other way around. And so for those countries that are still building a nascent mining industry, start with the first two steps, exploration and mining. Downstream investment is a tough business, big skills gaps, the infrastructure you need is a big step again. Why not partner as per the concept around the super region and get the best of both worlds and negotiate with partners on returns for providing materials? That's where I think for this conversation to go anywhere, it has to be a different type of conversation. We're not there yet.
That was short, that was thoughtful, thought-provoking. Please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you.